we know that GCs tell us that, hey, 40% of the GCs that we interview every year say we expect to increase spend with outside counsel. So then we can take those insights back to Thomson Reuters and say, we think there's going to be more activity in the law firm space. Here's the practice areas that we think are going to be growing. Here's what they're talking about around talent and hiring, those types of insights.
Welcome to On Record PR. I'm your host, Gina Rubel. Today, I'm going on record with Mike Abbott. He's the head of Thomson Reuters Institute. The Institute brings together leaders from across the legal, corporate, tax, and government communities to share data and insights, discuss market trends, and help shape the way forward for these markets and individual organizations. So this is all really about Mike and what we can talk about. So welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. I appreciate it.
It's incredible to have you and to really talk about some of the key things about Thomson Reuters Institute and about the trends in the industry. So why does Thomson Reuters have an institute in the first place?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. People that ask that all the time, actually. We set this up. It's had kind of a long and storied history. We did an event that you're familiar with out in Pebble Beach with law firm leaders 19 years ago. And, it took us a few years to find our stride and make it not feel like, you're attending a timeshare pitch. And the key thing there was, hey, let's talk about you all, give you the forum to interact with each other law firm leaders. And we learned over the years, the best thing that we can do is have panel discussions, bring in speakers, facilitate the conversation, and get out of the way and learn. And it kind of started growing from there. And the Thomson Reuters Institute started out as the Legal Executive Institute, where we said, let's just bring a different approach to this and provide insights and content that, that is relevant to any law firm leader about how they operate their firm, right? So then we had some success with that over the years with the Institute from a content perspective and a programming perspective. And here about 3 or 4 years ago, they said, let's make this the Thomson Reuters Institute and include tax professionals, corporate legal departments, and the government in there as well. So we've done that. All of our programming, all of our content is really geared around, I would say for legal, it's more business of law than practice of law. Same thing with the corporate legal departments. And for tax professionals, we're only a couple of years or so into that. We're still kind of finding our way here, but it's very much about the profession versus, specifically about practicing in the tax space. But it's been great. I appreciate the fact that Thomson Reuters allows us to do that. We sort of are a little bit hands off from the day-to-day commercial activity, the marketing activity with Thomson Reuters. And I think that only lends to the credibility. One of our former presidents said, this was back when it was for legal, they said, we occupy a pretty unique space at that time in the legal market, really in all the markets we serve. We're at the intersection of academics, clients, law firms, tax professionals, and where all of that comes together. So we have a pretty interesting perspective and have the opportunity to work with these customers and help shape the way forward for them and engage differently as Thomson Reuters and not where, we're trying to always sell something, but instead really kind of inform them about their own markets. So I'm thankful that we can do it, and I love doing it.
I have to say, having attended the last conference, for managing partners, it was incredible. Just having the engagement with top economists, some of the key reporters globally, and having the level of conversation was so different than what we're used to. Mm-hmm. So I have to say, having been there, it was very eye-opening to be privy to those discussions and those trends to the point that I've repeated some of the information ad nauseum.
Yeah. No, that's right. We're really lucky to host that event. And, we do 2 others too. We do one for tax professionals, which happened just the week after you were there. And before that, we had it for general counsel. And they are the ones that really make it what it is. I mean, going back to helping us shape the agenda too, we have an advisory group with all 3 of those customer groups. And, they tell us, hey, this is what we want to talk about. This is what's top of mind. Plus, we have our own collection of data and insights that we gather on our own. So, we kind of help and jointly we create these agendas that is truly about the things that are shaping and impacting their industries. And so, and when they're there, they engage, actively. They know it's Chatham House rules, and what we're talking about there stays there. But we could talk about the big trends. But yeah, it just works, and we're really lucky that we found that model, and it's really allowed us to branch off into some other areas as well.
It's fantastic. So, do you bring the insights engagement to Thomson Reuters to help shape strategy?
We do, and I will be honest with you, sometimes we do a better job of that than others. There's a lot of different components of Thomson Reuters, and yes, those insights will come back. We'll say, let's use legal as an example. We know that GCs tell us that, hey, 40% of the GCs that we interview every year say we expect to increase spend with outside counsel. So then we can take those insights back to Thomson Reuters and say, we think there's going to be more activity in the law firm space. Here's the practice areas that we think are going to be growing. Here's what they're talking about around talent and hiring, those types of insights. So yes, we bring it back, but also just in terms of the day-to-day engagement with all of those, with all three markets, just that trend information is valuable to us as well. I mean, we're active in the AI space right now, and we get a lot of insights from these markets around, hey, where are they actually in the scheme of things with AI? There was chaos a year and a half ago. Have things settled down? Are they actively, so we get pretty decent insights there, and it really does help shape some of those product strategies for us, and to some extent go-to-market strategies too.
That is a perfect segue for us to take a quick pause for a message from our sponsor, and then we're going to talk about what's impacting business going forward in generative AI. So
Perfect.
Let's take a quick break.
This episode is brought to you by Furia Rubel Communications, a public relations and marketing agency serving law firms and businesses internationally. With an expert team of professionals positioned throughout the U.S. and supported by international affiliates, Furia Rubel enhances its clients' brands through integrated communications by providing expert guidance in crisis management and high-profile litigation, protecting brand and reputation, and supporting internal marketing teams with media relations, media and crisis training, and client and talent acquisition and retention. To learn more, visit furiarubel.com.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Mike Abbott from Thomson Reuters Institute. And this is a very enlightening conversation. What I want to talk about now is what are the trends you're seeing in the industry and how do you see them impacting business going forward? But not only the trends, and I know you're going to bring up generative AI.
Yeah.
I also want to talk a little bit about what's happening at Thomson Reuters as it relates to generative AI.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny, we were talking earlier about the groups of customers that attend our events and so forth and that consume our content. We interview, just to put it in a little bit of context, we do about a little over 2,000 interviews a year with general counsel. And we want to know what trends are impacting their business, where their priorities lie, how they feel about their career and their profession, a whole host of issues. But part of that, we ask them, hey, are there any standout lawyers with whom you work among your outside counsel? So they'll give us 2 or 3 names of individuals, and we'll follow up and do another 2,000 or so interviews with those lawyers. So we really get a pretty interesting perspective on both what we would consider to be the buy side and the sell side of legal, right? Now we've started to do the same types of interviews with tax professionals. We get together with this group to plan the event we were talking about, and we ask them, okay, what do you want to talk about? These are 3 separate meetings that we had. And the consistency among the trends and the themes was amazing to me. I mean, it really made, I'm not saying the agenda planning for those are simple, but it streamlined it because the things that they're wrestling with the most are geopolitical and economic issues that are impacting their business or that will be. You mentioned Gen AI and other technologies. It's huge for them, right? Now, not everybody's in the same place in terms of their readiness to deploy or willingness to deploy sometimes, right? But they're all wrestling with that. And from that, rolls into some other areas like talent decisions, hiring, retention, organizational culture, big one. The other one that was a big one too, and this is one that you're certainly familiar with, and that's the evolving role of the leader. And I don't care if that's a law firm leader or a tax firm leader or a leader in a legal department at a GC. The role is different today than it was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago. And they're being called upon to do some things or provide commentary on some things that they never dreamed they would have to do. And it's a real challenge for people. It's like, I went to law school to be a lawyer, not to be a CEO of a small corporation. And now all of a sudden the expectations on me are very, very different. So I think those are some of the key themes that we're seeing for sure. And, we do a study, this is our second year for doing it, called Future of Professionals. And we interview professional service firm leaders from, across different industries. And we just ask them, hey, there's a lot of change happening around the world, right? Or, just in the professions that you're in right now and around the world. But a common thread in all of that is the emergence of AI and other technologies. And what do you see over the next 18 months? What are you seeing for the next 3 to 5 years in terms of change? And it's something that they're all trying to get their arms around right now. And from a Thomson Reuters perspective, I was saying earlier, one of the reasons we engage with firms through the Institute is to help lead the way, provide a perspective of the next 3 to 5 years, at least from our point of view. And that's very much what they're looking for as it relates to the future professionals work in the AI space.
So you all have a relatively new hire, Raghu, who was a phenomenal presenter and talked a little bit about some of the things that are happening at Thomson Reuters. And I was really intrigued by that. A little scared, I have to admit, but very intrigued. So can you tell me a little bit about what he's spearheading?
So Raghu he's the president of our legal business, and he's working hand in hand with others, but with our product team a lot, our strategy team quite a bit. And really the product strategy for us is moving us more into this Gen AI space and allowing AI to enable and inform and pull together a lot of our offerings. So if you are a law firm practitioner, just as an example, the tools that you've always been able to leverage from Thomson Reuters are being combined so that it's sort of this is selling it short for sure, but sort of one-stop shopping for all of your research needs. You're drafting a document, you're pulling in other pieces to this. So it's really about combining all of this. And we've hit the accelerator with our AI product development over the last 18 months. And I've never seen anything. I've been with Thomson Reuters a really long time, going back to West Publishing days. I'm both proud and sorry to say, but I have never in my career seen a faster paced environment in terms of product development. I've never seen the strategy coming together more effectively. I've never seen more enthusiasm, both internally and within the markets that we serve too. And that's not the Thomson Reuters commercial. That's just kind of the nature of the beast and how we've been evolving. I mean, when everything hit the fan with ChatGPT 18 months ago, and it was all you heard, and a lot of hand wringing and a lot of enthusiasm and everything else, the folks here from the product team, the strategy team, Raghu's relatively new. He wasn't here at the time, but he's come in and he's gotten up to speed immediately. But it's been head down. Let's get this together. Let's get this out the door. And they've done an amazing job with it. And that's the way a lot of organizations are acting right now and behaving. It's a very interesting time, I think, just in general. Just everybody sees, you're going to see that 70% in the future professionals results, 70% of the people think there's going to be massive change over the next 5 years. 93% think it's going to be great for their organization and careers and so forth. 70-some% say overall is a really positive thing. And I think that's what we're seeing across all of the markets we serve. And again, not everybody's at the same place in terms of how they're evolving their businesses or how fast they're jumping in. And there's always going to be laggards and people that feel like, hey, if I ignore this long enough, it's going to go away. But it's not going anywhere, right? And it's a fascinating time to see everybody kind of working in the same thing in the same ways, right?
It's interesting. I have a theory that without COVID, the legal industry in particular would not have adopted generative AI as quickly as it has, because all the same firms that were afraid to let people work from home or, virtual and all of these things, it accelerated exponentially the mindset of how the practice of law can work and still be productive and profitable. And now we have generative AI. And it's, within the same 5 years, not even just a decade, right? Mm-hmm. Like my head is spinning. I've been in the legal industry literally my whole life. I'm a third generation lawyer in my family, grew up as we used to call it a Xerox girl. I mean, that's what I did. I used to be in the copy room when I was 14. And I remember having to talk my dad into getting a fax machine. Now we're talking about this thing called generative AI, and anybody who thinks that it's going away, my gut is those same firms, and I would really love your prediction.
Yeah.
Those firms that think this is going to go away, or that law is going to be done the same way that it's always been done, are either going to get acquired or go out of business. I mean, that's
100%,
what I think.
Yeah.
So what do you predict?
I couldn't agree with you more, honestly. And I've said this before. So the amount of change that we've seen since the pandemic, we thought we saw a lot in 2008 to 2010 and into 2012 after the financial crisis. But the same level of change wasn't implemented, right? Everybody talked about it. Everybody worried. Everybody talked about change. But, and there was change. There's no question about it, but not at this pace. I truly believe, and I agree with you in that it was for all the terrible aspects of the pandemic, and it's, sort of more terrible than good. A couple of the positive things that came out of it to me were exactly what you said, that ability and willingness and eagerness to adopt technologies and not be afraid of it, right? All of a sudden, literally overnight, you went from going into the office to using Zoom or Teams or whatever it was going to be, right? And you'd never seen that before. Like there would have been feature. It would take months or years to get that. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, we can be pretty productive, with people working from home. And, not everybody feels the same way. I get it. But the technology was an enabler, and it kept, we saw a relatively short period of time of a downturn in law firm demand or hours worked per lawyer, right? At the onset of the pandemic. And then all of a sudden, it jumped back up again, and they had a couple of amazing years in there. Law firms did, so it was really, really interesting. And I think that was it. It was a catalyst and an accelerator for work to be done differently, for operations to be handled differently. I think the other thing too, and this is another thing that I mention all the time, is when I compare today to 2010 coming out of the financial crisis. What we heard all the time, if we would do a conference or have a conversation with, GCs or law firm leaders, there was a disconnect between law firms and their clients. And it wasn't a huge one, but it was like, hey, the client to the law firm, you don't really get it. This is about efficiency. It's about, I want you doing things differently. I want you leveraging technology. You're not listening. There was always a rub. And we did panels where we'd have, a GC on a panel with a law firm leader, and not that it was confrontational, but it was very direct around, this is what we expect, but this is what we're getting. And, so you fast forward to today, and I think because everybody was in it at the same time, everybody's trying to figure this out. The state of those relationships are far better than they ever were. There's much more of a collaborative environment to it. I think the relationships are stronger, and that's a very good thing. So I think the two, the willingness to change and adopt technologies and leverage them effectively, along with the state of, client and outside counsel relationships, we came out of that in a healthier place for sure.
So what do you see the 2 to 3 year horizon looking like for law firms in particular?
Yeah, I think, we're starting to already see firms looking at things differently. I was at a roundtable not too long ago where, hey, these are some of the things that we're trying. Some of those are Thomson Reuters solutions, some of them aren't. But we're also looking at hiring decisions differently. We're starting to look at data scientists or associates that have AI skills or general technology skills. So, and that kind of surprised me that they'd be looking at recruitment and hiring and talent that way, but they are. So I think what we're going to see over the next 12 to 18 months as firms continue to find their footing and put their strategies in place. And I think if you look 3 years down the road, it's going to look dramatically different in terms of firm structures, the way they hire. I mean, to me, I could be wrong on this, but I think the traditional pyramid structure of a law firm looks more like a rectangle, in the next 3 years. Different roles. We've talked for years about how firms will bring in people from other industries to be, CFOs or COOs or marketing leaders or technologists, whoever. And for a long time there, they would bring them in, but they didn't really have a seat at the table. And, and that's changing too, for sure. And I think that's only going to change more once, sort of structures and the way work is being done changes. We hear a lot about when AI can take away some of the more mundane things or the things that people just don't like to do or aren't good at doing or whatever, that it creates room for higher value work to be done. I think that's a possibility for sure, and it probably will happen to some degree. I had a couple of people say, I'm not sure who's going to be doing all this high value work because right now they're not in the organization. But I think that changes things too. The landscape changes. But I think the other thing too is better work-life balance and, just what other areas kind of get opened up because of those savings, like the time savings. But it's going to be very interesting to see. But I think 3 years looks very different than today. And I think 12 months from now looks very different too. I think everybody's kind of running at this at a similar clip, and they're figuring it out. And we knew it was going to take a year for everybody to just get their bearings, and let's weed out the extremes on either end and just figure out what's right for us, and we'll see stops and starts, and things will work and things won't work, and they'll keep trying it. But, I had a couple of, you might have heard this comment before, and I can't even attribute it to any one law firm leader, but they said for law firms, it's a race to be second. And I think that's kind of the place we're in right now is, hey, I'm going to wait a little bit. We're still looking at it, but I want to see what's worked and what hasn't, then we're all in. So, I think that's what the next probably 18 months brings.
When we say the tail wagging the dog, right?
Right.
So before we go, do you have any questions of me?
No, what? The one question I had for you, and it's not even fair to put you on the spot, but you asked me in the onset, why did Thomson Reuters kind of invest in the Institute, and why are you going in this direction? And I know you work with a lot of other organizations. What is your perspective on that? Is it I assume you think it's a positive thing, but do you see that a lot? Do you, I don't know. I just love your perspective on it.
No, I don't see it a lot. And I think a lot of organizations have conferences or events or meetings that are very heavily focused on track after track after track, and meeting after meeting after meeting, and selling CLEs and all of this stuff that by 5 p.m. you're completely wiped out and you don't want to talk to anybody. And it's not as high level. And look, I go to a lot of conferences. I support a lot of organizations. I'm paid to speak at a lot of places. And the ones that I see are doing it right are the ones who are engaging in collaborative conversation, that are sharing new insights, not the same thing over and over and over again. It's the marketing theory of value add, right? What are you getting out of it? For me as a CEO, 23 years running my own business, I can tell you that walking away and having insights from key global reporters, having insights from key economists, it helps me as a business leader to not only look at my own strategy moving forward, how are we as a company going to handle whatever's happening in the global economy when we do business globally. We could also share the resources of those insights and say, Thomson Reuters has the data around X.
Yeah.
Because when we do any kind of strategic planning for a client, and when I say strategic planning, it's very different than what Thomson Reuters does.
Yeah.
I'm talking strategic marketing planning.
Sure.
I'm talking message management. As I spoke there about, whether or not you should or should not speak about geopolitical issues publicly, that data helps us also to go back to the client and say, here's the data behind the recommendation, and here's why it's so important. And one of the things I heard from a lot of the C-level executives and MPs who were in attendance was that they take the data back and it helps drive their conversations with their ECs. Yeah. That's very different than getting a CLE. Let's just face it, it's different.
It is. And there's very little that we do from an institute perspective that isn't based in our own data. We have the data that I told you through those interviews, but we also have financial performance data for law firms that they send us their, if they're subscribing and send us their time and billing information each month, they can compare themselves against other firms. But we can roll it up and say, in the big, this is the health of the legal industry, really, based on the financial performance of, 200 plus law firms. So those insights are really valuable, and they really are the core and the foundation of all that we deliver. And getting back to my question to you, the reason that they do this is, look, we're a big part of the markets that we serve. And if we can make our customers just better within their own market in whatever way, or more informed, or whatever it is, it makes us the same, right? We learn from all of that. And I say all the time internally, and I've had this question, like at our Pebble Beach event, somebody will say, how do you measure your return on an event like that? And it's like, look, if we do this the right way, in terms of the way that we engage and the data, the insights we're putting in front of you, I'm pretty confident the commercial piece will take care of itself in time. And if it doesn't, we're still informing the market, and helping shape the way forward. And I'm proud of that. And like I said at the very, very beginning, I'm very, very thankful that Thomson Reuters continues to support and invest in this for sure.
Well, I have to say the data speaks for itself, and the non-sales approach speaks for itself as well. I'm not fond of a sales approach, never have been as a former practicing attorney.
Right.
I want information. You deliver information, you deliver insights, and you help people to guide their decision making. And when I say people, I mean big law firms globally.
Sure.
So, and that's the sector we're mostly in. Well, our agency does work with other professional service firms. Mm-hmm. We've been doing legal for so long that it's our primary space. So that's what I know. But with that, do you have any parting thoughts or tips for our listeners?
I think to me, it would be if you're in the legal space or the tax professional space or even a GC or somebody in the legal department, Thomson Reuters Institute.com. The resources are free on there. Blogs, podcasts, white papers, all of our conferences are on there. Take a peek at it. And then I would say buckle up for the next 18 months to 3 years. It's going to be pretty quick and quick pace changed for sure. But I really appreciate you having me on and being a part of this. It was great spending time with you, and great spending time with you at the event as well.
Thanks, Mike. And thanks for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. And thanks to our listeners for turning into On Record PR. Please visit our website, onrecordpr.com, subscribe to the show, share it with friends and colleagues, check out our show notes, and find all the information that you need. As always, we welcome guests and topic ideas at podcast@onrecordpr.com, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
On Record PR is produced by Jennifer Simpson-Carr and Matt Henderson, with support from the team at Furia Rubel Communications. This episode is edited by Željko Tomic of Compost Media Flow.